Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. Welcome to the Four Wheel Drive Show. I am your host, Coach Tripp. This show is brought to you by Sandy Sansing Chevrolet. Go by and see all the great dealers here in Pensacola, Milton, and Foley, over in Foley. Go see them. Tell them Coach Tripp sent you. Got my old high school teammate, Syracuse great defensive lineman, Billy Pendak on. Billy, great to see you, brother.
Hey, Paulie, how you been, man?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. You know, busy, staying busy. We've got an interesting show. We four-wheel drive, of course, Timmy Green, our high school teammate, Syracuse All-American, and Jamie Kimmel right above my head. And, of course, there is Blazer right there. These guys, four-wheel drive. I don't forget where I'm from. Even though I'm a Bama boy, I don't forget I'm from Syracuse. I got me a shirt. That's the only Syracuse shirt I got, the national title basketball team. Billy, send me a football. Send me a Syracuse football shirt or something.
All right. I got a few here.
Man, we just wanted to give a shout out. We're going to have a reunion for Coach O'Leary's players at Liverpool High School, 79 and 78, 79 team. Of course, we graduated in 1980, but that's coming up July 18th. I want to get the word out there early to anybody that's watching the show. Spread the word. And, we got an interesting subject today, Billy. Accountability. Taking responsibility for your actions. Okay, I'll go through this and then we'll talk about it. I was watching the game a few years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was 2021, and the Bucks lost. Bruce Arians was the head coach, and the Bucks lost 9-0 to the Saints. Okay, and the Bucks were a playoff team. They won the Super Bowl the next year. But I want to recognize what Coach Arians said to the press. He said, "Quote: the Saints just kicked our ass in every phase of the game." Unquote. That is the first step in redeeming yourself, Billy. Take responsibility and give credit where credit is due. Drew Brees and the Saints defense deserved it, he said. When you lose a game, Billy, coaches, players, they have to take inventory and be introspective. Then you can move past it. You do this by working on your weaknesses so they don't get exposed. However, if you blame the loss on other factors like the referees, the coaches, the players, the weather, it was too hot, my knee hurt, whatever it is, you'll never get better because the egoist will never get better. An egoist thinks he's already great and there's nothing to work on. That is his misplaced rationale. He thinks it's always someone else's fault. He or she thinks it's always someone else's fault when they lose. Humility redeems and pride restricts. Listen to what the great John Wooden said on the subject of blaming others, Billy. Quote, you can make mistakes, but you aren't a failure until you start blaming others for those mistakes. When you blame others, you're trying to excuse yourself. When you make excuses, you can't properly evaluate yourself. And without proper evaluation, failure is inevitable, unquote.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's great advice, man. You know, he was a great basketball coach, but he was an exceptional human being, man. The strong Christian with the conviction on teaching, coaching in Christ. You must study John Wooden. He's a great example. And Billy, I saw Dougie Baldwin just a few weeks ago here in Pensacola. He got honored as the Hall of Fame here in Pensacola. And I remembered, when he stopped playing about 8 years ago, there was an article in Sports Illustrated. And at the end of the article, this Gulf Breeze native and great NFL wide receiver said this about the secret to his success. Quote, self-evaluation was my engine, unquote.
Well, yeah.
You know, I mean, that's I myself needed a lot of self-evaluation in my life too.
Right. Yeah. You think about accountability and you think about all the years we played and you think about there are times when all of us have been fallen victim to blaming somebody else, blaming not yourself, blaming, because let's face it, in the heat of battle, in the heat of a game, when time is ticking down or whatever's going on, and you feel like you did your job. They still score. They still make 7, 8 yards. It's hard, very hard, not to turn next to you and bitch at somebody or blame somebody. And not take accountability on yourself and be hard on yourself. And again, to your point, you talk about, and again, we talk about all these examples of great coaches, great players, and we take pieces and bits of all these people's things that they do that make them that good. And again, you talk about the great ones. Accountability for what you've done is paramount to being a great coach or a great player. One other thing, not to mention, this is a great subject, not only for sports, but for life. Accountability in what you do when your eyes open up in the morning and you go to sleep that night.
No, I've seen it in real life. Actually. I've seen men and women not take responsibility, can't say I'm sorry, just narcissistic traits. Okay. If you study narcissism like I have, then you'll understand. If you haven't studied narcissism, maybe you should, because then you'll be able to recognize these traits that, these people are so damaged that they're always blaming somebody else. They have no empathy. They don't care about what other people feel. Those get weeded out in sports. I know it happens a lot in business. There's a lot of narcissistic business people and politics. Woo! There's a lot of narcissistic politicians. So you have to understand that. But sports, Billy, somehow it weeds those egoists and those self-centered guys out. If you have a great culture, it weeds in sports. It just weeds them out. They're cancer. They won't stay long on a team that has discipline. Billy, you were a police officer for many, many years, couple decades. You saw probably a lot more than the average American. Criminals not taking responsibility for their actions.
Oh my God! I mean, that's you talk about it's the old saying is when you go to a penitentiary or prison, everybody's innocent. I mean, it's you're dealing with people that still, even though you have evidence, you have stuff on film, they still say they didn't do it. That's, and back to the sports. I mean, think about the great teams and the great units that played, not only great teams, but the great front fours, the great group of four, the great defensive backs, the great guys as a unit. Did any of those guys point fingers at each other? I'm talking the great ones. Now, it's a combined unit. And we always talk about it's a team sport. And when you have that one weak link that's pointing this, that way, you can't function and you can't succeed as a team or a unit.
Nope, you can't. They have to get off the field. They cannot play. I would not stand for it as a coach. As a player, I saw it, I played for 20 years, played the game for 20 years, 7 to 27 years old. So I saw it in sports, but yeah, I do see it in real life. And that's why I think sports, music, religion, those things transform, sometimes transcend society, and they can be barrier breakers. But yeah, that's interesting stuff. I'd love to get Dougie Baldwin on the show and expand on this theme with him. Ask him what he meant by that. I'll try to get him on the show. Maybe we'll come on and revisit the subject. But responsibility is, and it starts with the coach. I remember Coach Bryant. I should have pulled out that segment called "Never Blaming the Refs." Coach Bryant was, oh man. Alabama got screwed in in the Orange Bowl, I think it was against Texas. I believe the Cotton Bowl or the Orange Bowl. Can't remember which one. Namath was taking a snap from Dr. Galen McCullough, and through this quarterback sneak, landed 1 or 2 yards in the end zone. So they started celebrating. And the referee, they called touchdown, but one referee, the white hat, came from behind this line of scrimmage, said, no, put the ball at the 6-yard line. He was a Big 10 official, Big 8 official. Texas was in at the time. Turned around and said, first down, Texas, the other way.
Yeah.
Well, all those guys are like yelling and screaming, and they come off the field, and they tell Coach Brian, Coach, we scored. We scored. And Coach Ryan took a step back, looked at all of them, and said, if Joe would have walked in the end zone, there would have been no question about it.
Right.
So his lesson was, don't just do barely enough to get by. Do enough, take responsibility for doing more than enough, and then you won't be having to rely on somebody else's subjectivity.
Yeah, that's and every sport is, and we talked about this before about when we watch a replay together, me, you, and Blaze, everyone sees it in a different way. And unless it's really cut and dry, you might say it's one thing, I might say it's another, but and again, back to accountability, I mean, and we've all sat and thought about what we should have done or could have done. But it's easier to turn next to you and say, where the hell were you on that play? What why is it on me? But that's a great point that all great ones make, that they hold themselves responsible above everything else.
Well, we played for two of the greatest. I played for the greatest coach, and Coach Brian I think is still the GOAT. And Coach O'Leary, you played longer for Coach George O'Leary than any human living on earth. You played 7 years for the man. He was all about accountability, man. He didn't talk about blaming other people. And
Paulie, you think about everything we talk about with points of sports and football, and I've always looked back that it comes back to discipline. What you were taught and how you were taught to think about yourself and other people you played with. If you were not, and you remember these days back in high school, back at my days at Syracuse, we all four of us were all Americans, but all four of us every day for an hour worked on fundamentals and discipline. It was never finger pointing. It was never what is your problem? What's his problem? It was everything was cut and dry with that.
Yeah,
so,
I don't ever remember getting in an argument with my teammates, man. Ever, never, ever. In a football game, and in practice, yeah, I would fight them in practice if need be. But there was never, ever any finger pointing either which way. I know that it just it doesn't last long in that arena for finger pointers. And it was as a captain, you had to make sure that everybody was on the same page. And if I saw that, I remember Jeremiah Castile one time. He was a quiet leader, All-American, and a West Neighbors and Sammy Hood, two freshmen living in the dorm, and Jeremiah was a sophomore leader. So as a sophomore was the leader, and they got in a fight in the dorm. And Jeremiah came in, braked it up, and said, "What are you guys doing, man? Have you lost your mind? Get back to." And they were like, "Yes, sir, yes, sir." Yeah. They wanted no piece of Jeremiah because they had respect for him, and Jeremiah was that kind of leader. That's not how teammates interact with each other.
No. And one good point is I think about me going through football, me going through after football, police work, going on to do things. And in our unit, in our team, in our force, in our whatever, everyone supported each other as a unit. And think about this, Paulie. We talk about a football team. You're talking in high school, 45, 50 guys, 55 maybe. In college, 105, 110. You know, how difficult is that for everyone to be supporting each other and be accountable for their actions and not stray and just bitch and moan and complain after practice? Why didn't I play? I'm better than him. Why, you know, he missed that block. He missed that tackle. You know, right. And that's where the discipline of how you were brought up by your parents, by your coaches in them 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old years, being accountable for taking out the trash. Get your ass out of bed. Do this, do that.
You know, exactly, Billy. And it does carry over, you know, into everyday life.
And I think about every subject we talk about, you know, and I was very fortunate to have a guy like Coach O'Leary, my parents, a guy like Oscar Jensen. You know, I had guys in my corner that most kids, 90% of these kids now, will never have. And that is molding your life. And
I think about it too, and the subject comes up almost every week about why the kids are harder to discipline and they're all over the place. And it's not the kids, it's the parents. The parents are not taking responsibility for it, Billy. Yeah, you know, I've seen where parents would abandon their child, and then 40 years later, that child is an adult and cannot take responsibility because their parents were not around. You know, and then some of them can take responsibility. Some of them can self-assess. And a lot of them were so damaged, their parents were so mean and evil that those kids just can't recover from the shame and hurt that was done to them.
And I've trained thousands of kids, and it's a great question. It's a great mystery because everyone says 25, 30 years, 40 years ago, life wasn't like this. Was it the parents? Was it the coaches? Was it what? What thing has changed that's changed significantly is social media is driving everything to what's going on. What kid doesn't get up, the first thing he does, we used to brush our teeth when we woke up. Now, they're looking at a phone. They're checking a phone. I mean, they're barely able to sleep because of that phone they're getting at 7, 8 years old now.
Absolutely.
Social media is their new mother and father, Paulie.
Yeah, I know. That's the time. That's who they're spending time with, is that phone instead of their mother and father and friends and brothers.
When we sat down to dinner, we talked to our family. These kids are on phones all the time in dinner.
Right.
No, and I'm very old school. My daughters and granddaughters come over, and you talk about accountability, and I tell them, if I see a phone at the table, if I see a phone at my table, you can go outside and eat, or you can do what you want.
That's good stuff, Billy.
Well,
thanks, Paul, man. You're right. It's the parents allowing them.
It brings us back to discipline when you're young, 7, 8 years old, 9.
Right.
And you've been through it. You've been through it. So
formative years, right, Billy? Those are called the formative years. Okay, those first 12 years of somebody's life. Those are only 12 years. If you live 70 years old, that's only a seventh of your existence, man. You gotta have all your focus on your children and not yourself. You got plenty of time to focus on yourself when you retire, like we do. But man, in those years, your kids should be number one, head and center in front of you, and then they'll grow up to be well-adjusted, like my mother said. And my mother was a big proponent on all four boys being in music and sports. If you wanted to be in sports, fine, but you better sing or play an instrument and also do other extra activities. Have a balanced life. Yeah, have a balanced life.
Exactly.
She was, and my mother was one of those kids that overcame atrocities in her childhood. Her mother died when she was 14. She was abused by her own father. Okay. So if she could get through it, other people can make the choice, to be accountable and overcome. And a lot of them just can't go there. So, Billy, great show, man. I know we're not psychologists. We just play one on the show. Hey, man. Hey, man, I love you. I can't wait to come up to Syracuse. I never forget where I came from.
Hey, when you come to town, I'm going to give you a bunch of Syracuse stuff. I got some gear for you.
All right, brother. We're going to play some golf. I played yesterday, and it was Army golf, right, left, all over the place. But
no problem.
I'm thankful to God I can still swing with my neck and my shoulders. So
we're
good.
That a boy.
All right,
shout
buddy.
out to Blazer. Shout out to
Blazer. Get well, Blazer. Yeah, we should do a show. I'll call Paul Fraze. Maybe we'll do a CTE show one time, man. All right, brother. Have a good week.
Okay, man. You take care.
Bye-bye. Billy Pendock, man, special guy, special group, four-wheel drive, man. All Americans at Syracuse, all played in the NFL from the early 80s in Syracuse. Beat Flutie, more than what I could say at Bama when we lost 2 years to Flutie. But thanks for watching the show. I'm your host, Coach Tripp, brought to you by Sandy Sansing Chevrolet. Stay tuned for all these great sponsors. Without them, just wouldn't be possible. Have a great sports week, everybody. So long.
When it comes to buying your next car, truck, or SUV, you need a team that puts you first. Here at the Sandy Sansing dealerships, we're proud to serve Pensacola and the Gulf Coast with the best selection, trusted service, and deals that work for your family. Just like great coaches build great teams, Sandy Sansing builds lasting relationships with every customer who walks through our doors. Because when it comes to finding your next vehicle, there's only one name to remember. Sandy Sansing can.
75 years of service and high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple pane of brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained more people than any other bowling center in the city. We self-fund for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.
For 30 years, you have seen the orange Beck signs all over the Gulf Coast listing a property for sale or lease. Beck Partners is your trusted advisor in commercial real estate, property management, commercial and personal insurance. Senior Vice President David Valletto has been with Beck Partners since 1989. Take advantage of his wealth of knowledge by calling him today at 982-7352. 982-7352. Extensive experience in all aspects of leasing, sales, management, and site selection will make sure your expectations are exceeded.